Hey everyone! Today, we're talking about Sega, the company that brought us Sonic, blast processing, and that iconic Sega scream. For those of us who grew up in the 80s and 90s, Sega was more than a company. It was an attitude, the cool rebel in gaming. Sega's story is a roller coaster of highs and lows, but always about daring to be different. We'll journey through their home consoles, the Master System, Genesis, Saturn, and Dreamcast. Each console tells a story of ambition, innovation, and sometimes heartbreak. But this isn't just a history lesson. After looking back, we'll ask, what if Sega jumped back into the console game today? What would a new Sega console look like? So grab your favorite controller and let's dive into the wild world of Sega. This is about celebrating a legacy. The thrill of unboxing, the click of a cartridge, and the hours spent exploring new worlds. Sega gave us unforgettable moments, always pushing forward and trying new things. Let's get this show on the road and give Sega the tribute it deserves. Let's rewind to Sega's first home console, the SG-1000, released on July 15, 1983, the same day as Nintendo's Famicom. The SG-1000 wasn't a powerhouse, but it was Sega's first step into home gaming, playing both cartridges and Sega cards. Its library was mostly arcade ports like Congo Bongo and Girls Garden. It didn't set the world on fire, especially with the Famicom as competition. But Sega didn't give up. They released the SG-1002 and learned what gamers wanted. Then came the Sega Mark III in 1985. More powerful, better graphics, and backward compatible. The Mark III showed Sega's ambition to compete directly with Nintendo. Even if these early consoles didn't dominate, they were crucial. They established Sega as a player in home gaming and taught them valuable lessons. Without the SG-1000's brave first step, gaming history might look very different. It was the quiet opening act for one of gaming's most exciting stories. Sega was just getting started. The best was yet to come. In 1986, Sega launched the Master System in North America, a slick, technically superior rival to the NES. It had better specs and a modern look, but Nintendo's tight grip on third-party games made it tough for Sega to compete in the US. While the NES got Mega Man and Castlevania, the Master System relied on Sega's own hits like Alex Kidd and Phantasy Star. But in Europe and Brazil, the Master System was a massive success, dominating for years. For millions, Sega was the champion, not the underdog. This global success gave Sega the resources and confidence for their next big move. The Master System taught Sega that great hardware wasn't enough, you needed games marketing and grit. It built a loyal fanbase hungry for something different. The stage was set for the coming 16-bit war. Sega was ready to fight. 1989. Sega launches the Genesis, a 16-bit powerhouse with attitude. The Genesis does what Nintendo campaign was bold, targeting teens and selling a lifestyle. Then came Sonic the Hedgehog in 1991, a fast, edgy mascot that defined the era. The Genesis library exploded. Streets of Rage, Golden Axe, Shinobi, and sports games from EA. The 6-button controller was perfect for fighting games like Street Fighter II and Mortal Kombat, often uncensored, unlike Nintendo's versions. The 16-bit war between Sega and Nintendo was legendary, with Sega even outselling the Super Nintendo in North America for a time. Sega's aggressive marketing and fresh games made them the champion, if only briefly. But not all moves were smart. The Sega CD and 32X add-ons confused consumers and fractured the market. Still, the Genesis era was Sega's golden age. They stood atop the gaming world, having fought and won one of its greatest battles. The Genesis wasn't just a console, it was a cultural icon. Sega had arrived, but the next challenge was just around the corner. The industry was about to change again. Sega would have to adapt or fall behind. Riding high from the Genesis, Sega launched the Saturn in 1994, a 2D powerhouse, but the industry was shifting to 3D. The Saturn's complex hardware made 3D development tough, while Sony's PlayStation was built for it. Sega's surprise early launch in North America, with a steep $399 price, backfired, angering retailers and fans. Sony undercut them with a $299 PlayStation, and the crowd went wild. Despite its struggles, the Saturn built a cult following with classics like Panzer Dragoon Saga and Nights into Dreams. But the Saturn's difficult architecture and poor business decisions hurt Sega's reputation. It was a powerful console but hard to develop for and expensive. The Saturn marked the beginning of Sega's decline in hardware. It's a story of what could have been. A console with potential, hobbled by missteps. Sega's next move would be their boldest yet. The stakes had never been higher. After the Saturn, Sega needed a comeback and delivered the Dreamcast in 1999. The Dreamcast was ahead of its time built-in modem for online play, VMU memory cards, and stunning graphics. Launch games like Sonic Adventure, Soul Calibur, and NFL 2K wowed gamers. The Dreamcast was a fountain of creativity. Shenmue, Jet Grind Radio, and Phantasy Star Online set new standards. But the looming PlayStation 2, with its DVD player and massive hype, cast a long shadow. Sega's reputation had been damaged by past failures, making gamers hesitant. Despite innovation and a stellar library, the Dreamcast couldn't survive the financial losses and fierce competition. In 2001, Sega announced they were leaving the console business. The Dreamcast was a brilliant, forward-thinking console that deserved better. Its legacy lives on as a symbol of Sega's creativity and risk-taking. The dream ended too soon, but Sega's story wasn't over. Sega was always about excitement and attitude. The Genesis blew us away with arcade-quality graphics and that iconic CGA boot-up. Their commercials were legendary. Genesis does what Nintendo became a battle cry. Sega's hardware was iconic: the sleek Genesis, the sci-fi Sega CD, the 6-button controller. The Dreamcast felt like the future, clean design, swirl logo VMU in the controller. These weren't just consoles, they were portals to other worlds. Sega meant sleepovers, Sonic verses, Mario debates, and endless hours of gaming. The legacy isn't just sales or business decisions, it's the thrill and memories Sega gave us. Sega was about feeling like you were part of something special. The attitude, the energy, the unforgettable moments, they're still vivid today. Sega's ride was wild, and we were lucky to be along for it. The blue blur left a mark on all of us, and the story continues. When Sega left the console business in 2001, it felt like the end of an era. But Sega reinvented itself as a third-party publisher, bringing Sonic and other franchises to PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo. Seeing Sonic on a Nintendo console was surreal. Rivals now sharing the same stage. Sega focused on what they did best, making great games. They revived classics and launched new hits like Yakuza, Total War, and Persona. Sega became a creative powerhouse again, thriving as a software company. Their logo is now a familiar sight on every major platform. While we miss Sega hardware, their transition was a success. The dream stayed alive. Sega's legacy continues for new generations. The blue blur keeps running, and so does Sega. Let's dream. What if Sega returned to hardware in 2025 with the Sega Supernova? The design sleek, modern, with a glowing blue Sega logo, a nod to the Genesis. The Supernova would be the ultimate Sega legacy machine. Flawless emulation for every Sega console, support for old cartridges and discs, and classic controllers. It would celebrate Sega's entire history in one box. But it wouldn't just look back. It'd compete with Sony and Microsoft, focusing on that classic Sega arcade feel. Imagine a high-quality arcade stick in the box, online leaderboards, and quick pick-up-and-play matches. No multimedia fluff, just pure gaming. The launch lineup? A new AAA Sonic, Streets of Rage, Jet Grind Radio, and Shenmue 4. Sega would leverage its legendary franchises for a library that's pure Sega. It'd be bold, risky, and totally Sega. It's a fun dream. A new Sega console on the shelf. Maybe it's a long shot. But fans can dream. What would you want to see in a Sega comeback? The spirit of Sega is about taking risks and chasing dreams. And who knows, maybe one day the blue blur will lead the charge again.